This is one that I need to be very careful in my approach in discussing the topic of this very controversial secret of the debt clock. Let's explore. Before we get started, we are tracking the national debt through the U.S. debt clock here. It is almost at $33.9 trillion now and climbing at a remarkably fast rate here. We're going to be at $34 trillion before you know it, maybe before the end of the year. All these numbers that are ticking by, the ones in red, about debt are about debt. And of course, we have 4 of the largest budget items here that continue to climb up, adding to this, the federal deficit. Yes, indeed. So this is something that we're tracking here, but on every couple of days, the U.S. debt clock people post a new secret. And we're going to get to that secret in a moment, but I'm not going to actually articulate much of what's there. But we're going to use it to talk about something else because I think it is somewhat related here, and that is manipulation. And what is the biggest suppressive force for the price of silver? Well, it is silver ETFs. It is the derivatives. Silver ETFs are essentially an exposure to silver's price and don't actually represent silver itself. It's a way to get into the precious metals market without actually owning any precious metals at all, which I think is somewhat contradictory, but I digress. Where does it stand right now? Well, as you can see here, there's 189.95 paper versions, or really electronic versions, of silver to 1 ounce that's mined per year. And this is somewhat of a case that can be taken to an extent. Think of it like a ballot, you know? He who counts the ballots really makes the rules, right? I guess you could say that. I don't want to say too much more about it, but this is the secret of the debt clock is telling us now. And as you can see here, imagine these. You can see I've got to be very, very careful. I'm not going to actually read these things here, but you can read them on your screen, and you can see that there's a message being sent. It's a conversation between 2 people, one person who thinks that, there's some fairness going on in some of these other countries. Hey, they worked very well there because we want a proper outcome. We want an outcome that's based off of, a certain agenda or a candidate or what have you. So think about this here. We see about all of the that's gone on here, all the different things. And when you read this, it kind of makes sense that we should question how things have been done in the past, even in the recent past, which has been proven, by the way, in Connecticut. People should check that out. I don't want to say too much more. You can do your own research when you look into that. But nonetheless, it's been proven that it has occurred, and we know that it's occurred in the past. But the problem is that, well, there's a time limit, and there's also threats and intimidation. Part of the reason why I have to be kind of cryptic in my verbiage here on this. But you can see what's said there, and you can see what's happening here, because we must trust the integrity of the system, right? Exactly. Sadly, this is now something we don't have trust in, which is why I always talk about, the derivatives markets and the things like the Federal Reserve system in general. They manipulate. It's what they do. Just like the media manipulates. They try to manipulate you. And we have to, think for ourselves. We must look at all the data and all the information and come to our own conclusion about things. And in the end, when it comes to silver and gold and the debt and deficit spending that's going on there, no matter the price, we know that in the long run, those 2 metals, gold and silver, they outlast whatever kind of system is in place. They've outlasted empires, epochs, generations, and even religious denominations and religious sects and the like. It's been a constant throughout all the major faiths, but nonetheless, when you look at through the course of time, through the cultures, of the world, and even in today's modern age where everything is digital, including Bitcoin, which Bitcoin has far surpassed gold's price per Bitcoin, nonetheless it's very speculative. And sooner or later, something's got to give somewhere, in some way, in somehow. But what doesn't give, no matter what kind of derivative you put out there, no matter how many that are being filled and stuffed into certain containers, you can look at that as the ETFs and the like too. What it all boils down to is every ounce counts. You see what this says up here about ballots and votes? Well, think about it this way. When it's all said and done, every ETF may count here, but in the end, it should be that every ounce counts, because that's the bottom line. That's how we measure. We measure our wealth in ounces, not in dollars. And that message can be transcended over here too, in this system, what's been going on, especially what's been happening in the past 4 years in this country, but also in other countries, and with what's happening. So it's a very serious subject, a very controversial subject. You may not agree with this message, and feel free to post your thoughts down below. But be very careful, because even some of the comments get flagged. They're not flagged by me, but nonetheless, there may be something else coming somewhere else that I may talk about this a little bit more freely, but just keep it in mind. And I think it's good to question everything. And I think this is a very controversial little message here by the debt clock people, but this is part of what we do. We cover it no matter what, and it's just to document what messages, because once these go away, they're gone. So that's part of what I'm doing here, is documenting these on this channel. And so we'll keep an eye on it. But I think the parallel, especially with regards to precious metals and debt and deficit spending, and another thing too that we think about, when you have too many of one thing, such as the example you have here with these or that, this, too many of those, that may not necessarily represent with one individual, or too many of these. That's a dollar bill, you all. That's right. So many of these that have been printed, the M2 money supply is shrinking, but only slightly. The Bureau of Engraving and Printing is continually printing new notes, mainly to replace old notes, but also to fill that the need for currency out there. But nonetheless, there's a lot. Even though they've taken in more than they printed, there is a lot of dollars still out there. And if that was to all be repatriated back, in other words, if the BRICS nations really amped up their game, the dollar really could crash if everybody just gave up and rejected the dollar, and all those dollars came back to the United States. That is the penance we pay for printing too much of them. People start to lose faith, and they are losing faith around the world at a very small level, incremental levels. The dollar is still the strongest of the currencies out there. There's still a lot of countries that want it, but it's really only because everybody else is doing just as bad of a job, if not worse, than what we are doing. Just because they're doing the wrong thing with their currencies doesn't mean that we should, but we do, and we do it gladly because there's no constraints, and they just can do whatever they want, throw money around every which way, including loose. That's what they do. But you and I, we transfer these paper notes, and we move and gravitate towards something that is sound, that is solid, that is pure, silver and gold. So I hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.